so shiny and enticing from the outside, yet is risky and unpredictable from the inside. Did you know that 3 out of every 5 startups fail due to poor products delivered to the market? Nevertheless, there is no better time to think about your own startup. Shifting your services or your line of business to achieve the utmost ambition is more attainable now than ever before. You are on the verge of a new and exciting venture, and KnowledgeNet is here to help you. KnowledgeNet is interested to talk about your idea and get it into reality through our leading solution, iMore for Startups. iMore is a flexible and easy to understand cloud development space, and our developers can manipulate it to create a secure and scalable applications for you. With iMore, our developers can integrate your functions and develop your web and mobile app in a fraction of the cost that it normally takes. No more hiccups. iMore is your scalable, secure, and malleable platform that will rapidly get your startup into the rollout phase. Besides helping you to roll out a seamless product to the entrepreneurial area, iMore gives you the power to deploy and integrate with wide range of application servers. WebLogic, WebSphere, and Wildfly, JBoss, you name it. Finally, you can tailor stunning and interactive dashboards with just a few clicks. With iMore and the professional team that is leading KnowledgeNet, you have yourself a lifetime partner to ensure your success. Now it's your turn to make the right move, as your tech startup is now halfway launched. To find more about iMore, visit
Okay, good. I'm in. Okay, thanks, brother.
Assalamualaikum, Brother Dawood.
Alaikum salam. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's very clear. Alhamdulillah.
Good.
Yeah. Probably in a few minutes, there's supposed to be a short segment before this.
Okay. No, I had trouble getting in. Apparently, I needed a password, which nobody sent me to get in. So I had to get help.
All right. Brother Dawood, can you go on mute for a while before we start? Okay. All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone. Thank you for coming back for the second half of today's Islamic FinTech Week conference. And before we go into the actual schedule, let me just reintroduce myself for those of you who were not around earlier today. So my name is Umar Munshi. I am the president of the Islamic FinTech Alliance and also the managing director and co-founder of the Ethis group of companies. Ethis is ethical and Islamic combined. And what we do is we have multiple platforms in different countries focused on impact investment and also for charity Alhamdulillah, we are progressing very well in this difficult period during the COVID. And we are also one of the co-organizers
Great.
of this
Thank you.
event, of the Islamic FinTech Week. And so I'd like to again welcome all of you and thank all of you for making time to be here. We have we're supposed to have a short 5-minute segment by
Assalamualaikum.
KnowledgeNet, and I saw him, Mr. Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Huria. Good to have you with us. Can you hold on one moment? We have another short segment before this, but I think the gentleman is having some trouble coming in. All right, so while we give it a few more minutes, I'll just talk, which is what I do well. And earlier today, we had 2 sessions. I was moderating or the chairman of one of the sessions, and there was another earlier session. And all of these sessions will be recorded and will be made available. We will send information to all of you after the event, inshallah. Yeah. And for the next few days, every day we will have the same format from 3 p.m. Malaysia time to 5 or 5:30, depending on how long the last session will last. That will be the first segment of one day, and then there'll be a break before the next segment starts, which is at 8 p.m., which is now. And this will happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Each day there is a specific theme. Today is the future of Islamic finance. Tomorrow is the future of Islamic fintech, where we go a bit deeper into the technology aspect of things. And the third day, there's investing. For those of you looking to grow your money, the third day is something not to miss. And for the last day, it is fintech or Islamic fintech for financial inclusion, where we want to, or we have panel sessions, jumpstart sessions, and also debates to discuss about how Islamic fintech can play a significant role in bridging the gaps and to uplift especially the middle and lower middle segment of the population. On the final day, we'll also have some launches, so they'll be very exciting. There are 3 new Islamic fintechs being launched from different countries, and that will happen here on this Islamic FinTech Week conference. All right, let me just confirm with the gentleman, Mr. Atiyah. And if he's not able to join us in a few minutes, maybe we can have him later on, because I see for the next session, we already have our speakers and our moderator as well for the debate. Sorry, not the session, for a debate. Okay, since there's no response, we'll have to proceed with the next item or the next session. Yeah, then we'll round back to the first session. So we'll jump to the second session now. Okay, and do we have the speakers? I saw Mr. Dawood earlier, Dr. Huria, and there's also Almir Kolan. Are you back in? All right, just bear with us with some technical difficulties while the team works on it on the back end. Okay, while we wait for things to settle down, please feel free to chat. Yeah, you have the chat group for general chat. You have the Q&A where you can type questions and we can respond to your questions at a later stage. So feel free to network and interact. This is a new experience for all of us to have a 1-week virtual event, and this software is supposed to be one of the best. So inshallah, things will go well, and there'll be a lot of value created and derived from this. Okay, I see Almir Kolan here, and hopefully we can see the other 2 also coming back in. Assalamualaikum, Almir, how are you?
Hope you can hear me.
Yes, you have a very nice mic there. Inshallah, it's very clear.
How are you doing? How's everybody?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. How's things in Australia?
We are in the lockdown stage 4, meaning everybody is in the house.
Oh, mashallah.
Nobody is allowed to go anywhere.
All right. Well, now we have a window to Malaysia and
2
the
more
rest of the
weeks.
world. 2 more weeks.
I wish it will be good.
I hope you can hear and see me.
Okay, so we have, alhamdulillah, all 3 participants.
Well, I don't. Dr. Haria is coming on board now. Okay.
Yes, she's coming in again. Yeah. So I will pass on the mic, but very quickly I'll just highlight the topic of this debate, which is cryptocurrency in Islamic finance. Always a hot topic, and today we're going to debate about it, a friendly debate about whether it is a currency that divides, that creates problems and challenges, or is it the future or the evolution of money? So with that, I'll leave this session. Brother Atia is here. Okay. Apologies. Let's go back to our original schedule. We will have 10 minutes from Mr. Atia to give a quick presentation. And for the other panelists and debaters and the chairman, Brother Dawud, please go on mute for a while, if you don't mind, while we pass the stage to Mr. Atia for 10 minutes. Yeah? Okay. Assalamualaikum, Mr. Atia. Good to have you with us. Are you able to share your screen? Can you hear me? Mr. Atia, are you there? Sound is disturbed. Okay. Can you hear me now? Am I audible to you? Can you see me?
You are audible and you can be seen and heard, but I think maybe on the other end, maybe there is a problem.
Yeah, seems that way. Thank you.
We lost him.
Maybe send him a message, or somebody can type him a message.
Yep. We've been trying for the past 10 minutes. And we were about to start, then he came in. Right. Well, sometimes these things happen when you're at a virtual event. You can physically intervene. So if Muhammad Atia is not able to join in, then inshallah we can try again later. Yeah? Okay, it's here.
Hello?
Yes, alhamdulillah, we can hear you. Please proceed. Hello?
I can't hear anybody. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, you can.
Yes. Okay, great. Brilliant.
All right. So, okay, I'll start. It seems everybody can hear. So the idea is simply a different way to look at how startups in our regions operate. I want for a moment to for you to imagine that you are actually an investor, and somebody is coming to you with a proposition to build a multi-story, multi-tower, multi-purpose real estate, and it's in a good location in a sought-after area. and the calculations for rent and for returns are all done. They all look good and so on. And then he tells you as an investor that he's going to start with this. And that is going to be the project at the beginning. That's what most startups do effectively. And that's how what you felt now is exactly how the investor feels. And this is in line with the international standards. But when you look at the two projects, they are essentially different. What you learn in one project, what you practice in one project is different than the other. And one doesn't lead to the other necessarily. The processes are different, the systems are different, the technology infrastructure is different, the team expertise, the organization structure, everything is different. So if you start with a little thing, MVP or proof of concept, and you want to take it to a unicorn, you go through an unexpected territory compared to what happens in the US. I mean, the model is very simple, very straightforward. There are three stages primarily. So the formation stage, the validation stage, and the growth stage. And this is a copy of the US market. The US market operates like this primarily, and everybody is mimicking that or coming close to that. But what we need to look at when when you adopt a model like this are certain attributes to the ecosystem you're operating in. So in stage one, for example, you need to see the risk appetite of investors in your area. You need to see the social acceptance of an entrepreneur as a job. A friend of mine, he's a brilliant guy. He's starting a business, and he went to ask the hand of his girlfriend from his parents for wedding. And her father asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm an entrepreneur." I said, "My son, don't you want to wait until you get a job before you get married?" So this kind of social acceptance is an attribute of your ecosystem that you need also to consider. Also, the relationship between you and other suppliers, where you need to outsource marketing or market research or development. Is the outsourcing industry mature or not in the market that you're operating in? When you get into stage two, again, this is the US model, more the US, UK, Canada, Australia. They all operate within the same phases. Stage two, you need to see the options that are available to investors to come in. Do they have terms like in the law for tag along, for drag along, for convertible notes, these kind of mechanisms for investors to come in? Also, do you have in the law incentives that you can give to employees for stock options, stock purchase plans, stuff like that? If you are in the US, these things are given. But if you are in other markets, you should start thinking differently. Stage three, it's a matter of in and out, the pool size of investment, also the exit options. In some markets, the exit options are very limited. You don't have visibility for strategic acquisition. Your market is not really on the radar of international investors. There is only one large stock market where you can list in. There is no other markets that you can list in. So these are attributes that you need to consider. And if you're far from these, then you will end up actually dragged along a little bit. Your stage one will be a long stage one, possibly with a significant failure. Moving to stage two. Stage two also will be a very long stage two. And stage three is sometimes even questionable if you can reach there. So what we propose simply is have the startup mentality, but run it as a company. And in stage one, just do the business plan, the product fit, the market research. Run it like you would start a company. And it means also you secure the funding for the whole journey. You secure people who are not waiting for you to make month-over-month reporting or gain traction and so on. No, you are bringing investors who are with you in the journey until the company becomes sustainable, not until a stage 3 comes where we get in more cash to finance growth. And here you see the things that you're going to do are different in stage 1 and stage 2 according to the model that we are proposing. And that includes in stage 1 you will look at a team that's going to join you, but you're not going to hire them yet until you secure the funding. And the sourcing of funding is to cover the whole journey. If you go to stage 2, it's a bit different than stage 2 currently in how startups are run, where you will actually hire a proper team with a proper organizational structure, build the product to cover the journey, not a minimum viable product, not a proof of concept or a prototype, build the actual production product and have the technology to do that and go to market. Now, if you look at how things look like today, or the phases that startups go to, they start with a pilot or an MVP where a couple of people, possibly one person, he does develop something that qualifies as a pilot, for example. And then he raises money on that, and then the money goes to develop the product. And in the product development, you need to have an organization, you need to have a team, and the focus is on speed and accuracy in this stage. And usually, when you are at the beginning, you look at the end of finishing development of the product as the release time, that I have done my part. Now things will start moving very nicely. But in reality, you get scope changes, you get maintenance requests, you get support requirements, you get different type of team structures. And here the focus becomes on service continuity and responsiveness. What most people don't see is that technology itself changes. So you will come at a point where you have to rewrite the whole product, the whole proposition. You need to use new technologies. You need to connect to new suppliers, customers, stakeholders in general. And here, the important part is to be resilient. And resilience, very few startups look at it when they are in the pilot and the MVP stage, because it's 2-3 years, sometimes 4 years down the road. But it's a killer. If you're not ready, then the market will just bypass you with a new technology that comes in and somebody offering the same proposition on new technology, and you're just left out, as simple as that. And there are many examples. That summarizes the idea, and we actually coin it in the term think big and start big. Do not start small and try to run after securing money and stage 2, stage 3, and so forth. That's in our markets. If your market is not the same like the US with the attributes that we mentioned in the beginning, you're probably going to take longer to realize funding, to realize the team on board. One of the startups I'm engaged in as a board member, their plans are off by 7 months because they cannot attract employees, for example. So that sums the idea that a different model is required if your market is not really very similar to the US, and most markets are not similar to the US. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum, dear sister. I think we're
Hi.
waiting for Umar Munchi to introduce us. So I'm going to stay on mute until we get the official launch.
Sure. I was just wondering if you can hear me.
Certainly can.
Okay, good. Thanks.
I will redo the introduction, inshallah. So we have with us today three esteemed speakers who will be having holding a debate. We have Mr. Daud Vikri Abdullah, who is the Managing Director of DVA Consultancy, and we have Dr. Huria El Islami, who is from the hold on and let me get this. Yes, she's from the, I forgot the Indonesian name, but she's from the Hajj Fund BPKH, yes, BPKH in Indonesia. And we also have Mr. Alme Kolan from AAOIFI, Australia. So I will, without further ado, I'll pass this session to the chair of this debate, Mr. Daud Vikri.
Thank you, Brother Umar. Assalamu alaikum, and a very warm welcome to you all. At the moment, I see Dr. Huria on the screen. I do not see Almir Kolan, so perhaps somebody could try and find him. And the previous speaker is still on screen, so perhaps we need to take him off, if we can ask the admin to take a look at us. Anyway, welcome. The topic tonight, where we're going to have a debate, although we only have about 40 minutes for this, is cryptocurrency and Islamic finance. A divisive currency or evolution of money. And as I understand it, Dr. Huria is going to propose on the affirmative. In other words, she's looking at it as being part of the evolution of money. And Almir Kolam, Brother Almir, is going to talk about it being a divisive currency. We're not going to go into the Sharia side of things, as I understand it, but we are going to ask some questions about, does cryptocurrency indicate potential for relevance in Islamic finance? Will the growing acceptability of digital fiat money make up for the failure of paper money to mitigate inflation? And is the cryptocurrency revolution tainted with significant fluctuation in its value, rendering future innovations futile? Those, and I'm sure other questions, will be addressed. The format is an Oxford-style debate, so each speaker is going to have about 9 minutes each to put forward their case, and Dr. Huria is going to start us on that, followed by Almir, who I hope will join us soon, and at least is listening into the arguments. I'm then going to make a couple of opening remarks based on the points that they've raised. There will then be a brief chance for each of the debaters to present their rebuttals to the other argument, and then we'll have a brief period for questions and answers, and you can ask your questions by just going into the chat room, and we'll try and pick them up there. And then there'll be a chance just for a couple of minutes for everybody to have for a couple of minutes some closing remarks, and then we'll conclude. So we're going to be running for about 40 minutes. So without further ado, Huria, I'm going to be fairly strict on time. So I'll let you go ahead and with your opening remarks for about maximum 9 minutes.
All right. I'll try to make it shorter if possible. Thank you very much, Brother Daud. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. And yes, I'm the one of the proponent for the idea that cryptocurrency is the evolution of money, because let's start with the definition of money itself. Cambridge Dictionary has defined money as coins or notes that are used to buy things. And Merriam-Webster defines it as something generally accepted as medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment, which is quite interesting. In Merriam-Webster, it's noted that the term money itself started to be used in 1691, whereas we are not going to talk about Sharia, but if we trace the history back to the Prophet time, we know that very well that everyone has started using dinar and dirham as the medium of exchange were already widely used during the Prophet time. This is in addition to the, of course, the well-established barter system at that time. And in fact, although at that time the whole system was decentralized, because unlike the current fiat money, where basically the value you have on the money is the value determined by the issuer, that's mainly the regulator of a certain nation, but the dirham and dinar at that time were purely based on gold and silver, so they have their own intrinsic value, and therefore it doesn't need to be regulated to determine its value. So now, if we connect this with your earlier statement, Mr. Chairman, about the fluctuation, the thing is, it's not currency. From my viewpoint, why I'm supporting cryptocurrency, because it's not really the cryptocurrency itself which fluctuates, but it's very much the currency that is not stable. Because you see, when it comes to something that is considered as commodity, the price will be very much determined by the demand and supply system that is applicable to that particular commodity. And on my part, I would be arguing that, the real cryptocurrency, because in my case, I would differentiate between cryptocurrency and digital currency, where, for example, Facebook will actually try to introduce Libra. To me, Libra is not cryptocurrency, because although it looks alike and it is intended to be medium of exchange, so it's money, but then it is not cryptocurrency despite its intended usage on the blockchain platform, because it is lacking the three characteristics that has to be there for cryptocurrency. My argument is that, something is only accepted as cryptocurrency if it is an asset, first, and second, it is intended as a medium of exchange, and third, of course, it is run on the cryptocurrency platform, cryptographic platform. And Bitcoin, Ethereum, we take for examples, these two are asset, because unlike fiat money, they have limitation. The way how it was created, first of all, in order to get it, you need to mine it. So it's not something that someone can easily print out. And the value of it has intrinsic value, unlike the fiat money, where basically whoever issue the fiat money will actually tell, okay, this is the value I would like to put on that particular piece of paper or coin. But Bitcoin has its own value, which is determined by market. The same thing as, like other kind of commodity, like take for a simple example, a sheep or a goat. The price very much determined by the demand and the supply availability in the market. So it is an asset, a commodity. And furthermore, of course, it is meant as a medium of exchange, because that's the initial intent why Bitcoin was created, except that some people actually chose or opt to invest in it and keep it as a portfolio for investment. That's another story that we can actually explore further in different session. And then, of course, it used cryptography to have this decentralized, actually to enable the decentralized system of it. How much more time do I have, Mr. Chairman? I cannot hear you, Mr. Chairman. You are muted.
My apologies. I'm trying. I was told to mute whilst I was speaking. You have about 5 minutes.
I still have plenty of time. So I was rushing because I thought, usually I actually exceeded my time limit. So now, having established what is cryptocurrency, because as I argued for the purpose of today's debate that cryptocurrency only limited to those medium of exchange that has the characteristic of being an asset intended to be medium of exchange and run on the cryptography platform, and how it differs from Libra, for example, because Libra per se is not an asset, and therefore, it could be considered as digital money, as some other kind of money that we have and actually made available in the digital world. But it is not per se an asset. It doesn't even have intrinsic value. The value is determined very much by the issuer, as in this case, Facebook actually meant to have the value set based on the basket of currencies. And of course, the availability, Bitcoin, for example, Satoshi, upon certain period of time when the number has actually reached the limit, there will be no more Bitcoin can be mined, whereas Libra and other kind of digital currency that is basically not an asset, they can be printed or they can be issued as much as they like. There's no limit to it, it's endless. And it's backed by fiat money, because otherwise it doesn't have any value. Whereas as I said earlier, for Bitcoin and the like, the value is actually it has its own intrinsic value, which is based on the market and supply and demand. And now, why I believe that this is the evolution of money. Let's go back to the period during the Prophet time, where I started my opening remark with this, because we have dinar and dirham at that time, which basically commodity, but accepted as a medium of exchange. So you see, if we are talking about evolution, I truly believe now, eventually, during this age of time, as we are actually have surpassed the industrial 4.0 period, yet we are actually going back to where it was at the beginning, where, as we know very well, originally it started by commodity, precious metal, be it gold, silver, copper, bronze, that later on being minted in order to simplify the process of purchasing, trading. And then eventually it started to lose its value, especially when it comes to bronze and copper, where the issuer started to actually put certain value to it, not based on the real value of the coin at that time. And as it developed later on, they even introduced the notes that doesn't have any intrinsic value. The value is determined by the issuer. And then in the 1990s, as the internet has started to get acceptance on a wider level by the people all over the world. If you remember, they realized that, well, we need to do transaction on the virtual world, and yet we need something as
This
a medium of
is a
exchange.
2-minute warning.
Okay, thank you. And
2
then we need
minutes.
something to facilitate this. So they started introducing e-cash, e-check at that time. If you remember, it was in the 1990s. And then, as things developed towards the end of before the year 2000, then they realized, they need something more. They need something that can actually, because the digital world has shrunk, there is something that can actually widely acceptable, not being regulated by certain countries' regulation, but it is widely acceptable, not repudiated, and non-repudiatable, and something that has its own value, that the value is determined by the market. So that's why they introduced Bitcoin. And so like we are evolving, but we are going back to where it was. But this is the evolution of money, where basically it has evolved from something that is based on commodity to something that has less value, because people started to play on the value of the money itself. Then they started introducing fiat money that doesn't even have the intrinsic value. And then we have something which is still fiat money, but on a digital world. And then we go back to where it was, where in the digital world we have money that is basically currency, that is basically commodity. So you see, this is the, well, Daud, I hate to say, but my proposition is that, at the end of the day, it proves that Sharia is the way of life. It shows how it should be. Because now we are evolving, but we are going back to the start. So that's my take.
Rhea, as usual, fascinating 9 minutes, and I haven't got time to respond to that. I will later, but let me introduce Almir, who's got 9 minutes. I hope you heard most of that, dear brother. And you have 9 minutes starting now, not necessarily to refute the argument, to put the other side of the coin, which is cryptocurrency in Islamic finance is a divisive currency. Over to you, dear brother.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you everybody for inviting me, and thank you, and it's my great pleasure to be with you, Brother Dawood and Sister Hurie. Always a pleasure and a source of great inspiration to hear you both speak, and I will share a few points. I think whether the currency as we know it, cryptocurrency is a future, will depend on few things. So if we look at generally what we talked about, what is something that is currency, our scholars used to say it is something that is like a judge. So Ghazali explained currency as a judge that or a mediator between the commodities. Ibn Qayyim then said that it is not meant for itself, but as acquiring goods. So we see that issue of the currency is something that is used in a real commerce day to day. So for that reason, Ibn Taymiyyah says that diverting money by trading in it, creating it as a commodity, is diverting money from what it's supposed to do. So for example, when Mamluks, Sultan of Egypt, started minting their own currency, they started adding some other things. And they would mint the currency for the purpose of the profit making. So they would create money from creating money. That was their mode of operation. So what Ibn Taymiyyah said to them is, don't make business of making money as a source of revenue. Rather, even the person who works should be paid from Baitul Mal for this function. Basically, creation of money should be something that is done for the benefit of the society, not as an exercise to make money for the government. And therefore, this kind of attitude leads to debasement of the currency. And so he would say that the state is responsible for controlling currency expansion and checking erosion of the value. So for that purpose, this is an issue of the public welfare. And he said that making money from creating money lead to injustice. So what is the problem that current cryptocurrency is trying to solve in this world? So for example, if I ask anybody here, for example, did they ever come to a situation where they wanted to buy something in real life and then they said, oh my goodness, I cannot buy this unless I have a cryptocurrency? Nobody ever had that problem. Every problem already money digital. We use everything digital, bank cards, mobile phones, text messages, send money and so on. So there is no real reason that this particular cryptocurrency help us solve in the real life. So it's not useful for anything. Nobody goes in there every day and says, oh my goodness, if only I have my cryptocurrency, I would be able to solve this. So nobody does that. In fact, today I checked, for example, do you know yesterday transaction confirmation time of Bitcoin, how long it was? It was 3 hours. So 3 hours yesterday, average confirmation time for a transaction. So if you went to buy a coffee for $3, you would wait for 3 hours for the transaction to be confirmed. And if you went to buy that same coffee today, the fee would be 100%, $3.36. So not only is it slow, it's very expensive for the currency that is supposed to be very fast, digital, and affordable. Also, if you wanted to buy iPhone today, depending on the time of the month, this month you bought the iPhone, the price of iPhone will vary between $200 up or down, depending on the day in the last 30 days that you purchased it. If I were to send the money to somebody today, cryptocurrency, buy $1,000 in Melbourne, that's supposed to be the main city of cryptocurrencies, and I purchased $1,000 worth of cryptocurrency and send it, and that person took it and converted, from that $1,000, they would have only $92 minus the fees that I paid already. So they would lose about $78. If I send a $50,000, they would lose $3,500. So when Satoshi in 2009, and that is now 11 years ago, came up with this idea of Bitcoin and crypto, he was angry at the banks. He didn't trust the third party. But he created exactly the same system where the trust issue of decentralization was to deal with the trust that does not exist in a physical gold. So issue of centralization was to solve double entry booking system that digital assets don't have. That does not relate to anything in physical. So when he went to solve that, he solved that problem, but he introduced a third party. So in his own white paper, he says, the system is secure as long as honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attacking nodes. So we see that he solved the problem of supposedly third party by introducing the miners who will be honest, because incentives to make money drive them to dishonesty. So anonymous third party that controls most of the CPU is a huge problem that we don't have probably to go into at this moment. So can crypto really be future of money? One little problem that he himself talked about, besides the vulnerability relying on the majority to prevent a rolling back transaction, which can be done in the crypto a number of the ways, and it is not really limited as we believe, 21 million. 10 years ago, glitch in the cryptocurrency created 180 billion Bitcoins, which Satoshi had to rectify. But the main problem here, why it cannot become global, is because of its technology, decentralized. When you need to agree upon, imagine now we have these 60, 70 people on this webinar, and we all need to agree what time will this webinar start. Is that more efficient, or one person saying it will become at 6 o'clock?
Brother Almir, you have 2 minutes, please.
So the key problem when it comes to decentralized is that decisions are also distributed. So what that leads to is that crypto cannot become and guarantee finality of the payment. So what is happening, each individual payment can be verified as included in the ledger, but not what cannot be verified if there is a rival version of the ledger. So you could have two different ledgers, and then transactions can be rolled back. So whatever happens, this never reach finality of the payment, which is why you cannot make transactions like that part of global payment system and specifically network, which you have when you have, for example, Visa or normal banking. Couple that with what is happening, that majority of the people who do use it end up using it for illegal activities, as was shown by University in Sydney Business School. Half of the people who use it for illegal, and those legal who buy it for speculative to hold the purposes. So these kind of fiat, privately issued fiat money has a major problems in efficiency. If we want to see what is really future of the money or banking or finance, we need to look at what is really taking off. Look at WeChat, Alipay, that in same decades, like a Bitcoin amassed billions of users, and they are taking now 50% all of the transactions in China. So who should make future of money is the ethical government that you trust. They will do it for the not-for-profit purposes that will serve the welfare of the society.
Almir, thank you very much indeed for those opening remarks. We need to move swiftly on, so I'll just try and summarize in a minute or so. From Sister Huria, she described the three characteristics of cryptocurrency. It must be an asset, must be a medium of exchange, and it must run on a cryptography platform. And through her argument, she was actually saying it's a case of almost like Back to the Future. In other words, we need to go back and revisit the times of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and create a global market. But she felt that this was positive, that we were actually moving forward. The contrarian view on this, where Brother Almir was talking about this being a divisive currency, creating money is for the benefit of society, was agreed. However, if you were looking at some of the historical evidence that things like debasement, and this certainly happened when gold was discovered in in the New World during the 16th century, and debasement and inflation were absolutely rampant in Europe at that time. This leads to injustice. So you were raising questions about honesty and integrity, and I think you were concluding in your argument that having a decentralized system where you maybe have competing ledgers competing for the honesty, say my ledger is actually more accurate than yours, it would be difficult on a global basis to validate, and difficult in simple terms of accounting to close off the books accurately. So your argument is that it's extremely difficult to introduce cryptocurrency as an honest and efficient system until, of course, you have some form of global ethical government about that. So some interesting remarks from both sides. I'd like to now turn it back to each of you. So Horia, you have about 4 minutes to rebut any of the arguments that Almir had, and I'll time you very quickly. I'll give you a minute warning,
Right.
and then we'll do the reverse order, 4 minutes from Brother Almir. So please go ahead, Horia.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Brother Daud. Interesting observation, and well, to be quite honest, to actually counter the arguments in detail, 4 minutes will not do the justice. But let me try my best. We shouldn't make money out of money. That is exactly agreeable on that. It's an issue for public welfare. Well, you see, if I can sum up most of your observation, just because I cannot use it in real life, like you said, if I go to a grocery, I want to buy milk, for example, and they ask me for cryptocurrency, but that's the whole idea, because now we are talking about two different worlds altogether. We are not talking about the real world. In the real world, we already have our means of exchange widely acceptable. It could be fiat money, it could be whatever other method acceptable generally. But now we are talking about the exclusive use when we are in the virtual world, for which we have no answer yet to that. And when we talk about global world, well, maybe the Australian government will issue certain e-cash. But will I accept it in Indonesia? Not necessarily. Will Brother Daud accept it in Malaysia? No. So we need something. And then you trust your government, not necessarily mean I trust your government. Neither will be the case with Brother Daud, for example. And we can never have a world government that will actually issue one currency for everyone. So we need a system that will actually establish its own value. That's why the idea of going back to commodity, because commodity has its own intrinsic value. And the value is actually decided and based on the value of the commodity itself, which is now made available in the virtual world through the use of cryptography technology. And I'm glad that Brother Daud has actually solved some of the issue by when he make an example when people started finding gold, the debasement and all that happening at that time. So you see, you yourself mentioned that this idea of Bitcoin has been mooted only about 11 years ago. It's still new. Of course, the technology is not perfect. Of course, people actually, I did mention during my earlier my earlier opening statement that there's this issue of speculation. People speculate, but there's something about it that it will be another topic of discussion altogether, because there's also Sharia issue to it. But just because people speculate, just because people abused it, I myself in 2015, I was robbed. 5 robbers came into my house. They took whatever you name it. I have euro, I have dollars, I have ringgit, I have rupiah at that time in my drawer. They took the money. Does it mean money? Yeah. Does it mean there's something wrong with the cash or with the people? So you see, when the people, there is the problem, not the cryptocurrency itself, is the people that we need to actually rectify. Technology need to be rectified, it need to be improved, yes, but doesn't mean that we actually reject or refute the idea altogether. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, dear sister, and I'll pass it immediately for your 4 minutes, Brother Almir, for your rebuttals and counter-argument, please.
As Sister said, it's a very deep topic. I think here we are talking about entire idea and how it is structured, the logic and the assumptions that go into this. that seems to be a little bit problematic. So it's nothing particularly about technology. In fact, as technology improve, it will destroy cryptocurrency. For example, when we have a quantum computer, it will destroy the cryptology of the Bitcoin, because Bitcoin cannot handle. Because cryptology of these computers and new computers completely different. So you see the people from the nuclear power plant in Russia plugging in nuclear computer and bringing whole heaps of problems. So the problem here is that you have faceless people who run couple of mining pool who determine.
Oh no. Have we lost him?
We seem to have lost him, so hopefully they'll come back, and we'll try to keep time.
That's
we've got
Farhan.
somebody else.
Hello, brother.
Back.
Yeah, that's Farhan.
Okay, I'm going to allow him a bit more time. But then, anyway, these things happen. Yeah. Okay, you're back again. So I won't reset the clock, but you've got an extra minute.
Okay. As I was trying to say, technology itself is nothing wrong with technology. It's a whole idea of decentralized. That's just simply not efficient, and that's why you see, for example, with the 2% of the power, if we were to use the whole world on crypto transfer, the whole transaction, we will consume entire electricity of the entire world just to run the crypto network, because of the way that is structured, where Visa process far greater number of transactions with the 2%. So issue here that Satoshi misunderstood the basic of idea of trust. He thought that people don't trust banks and money for transactions. People don't trust bankers in terms of regulations, because same problems that he was having with the GFC was financial engineering and ethics in banking. That can happen with the crypto as well. Same engineering, and that's why you see crypto people, they are excited, oh, we have derivative, we have Visa coming. All of the people who said, and by the way, all of the idea of anonymity and all of these things, there are so many things that people are fed that simply are not true about the cryptocurrency. So that's why the proof is in the pudding. Nobody is using it. Forget speculation and other things. Point is, nobody is using it. Just like you don't use American dollar in Malaysia, or I don't use, I don't know, euro in Australia. People usually choose one currency to deal with their everyday life. So the fact that nobody's really have any need, that's where the problem is. And that's where the assumption is built.
1 minute warning, dear brother.
And so assumption here is built for those who are entering as a speculators. I don't care about that. But the problem is that they were sold story, this will be a global currency. And they are trying to jump on that bandwagon. So the people are promised one thing, they are getting into that. People are really not using it. They don't have a need for it. And there are fundamentals flaws. So this is the only problem that we're having. And unfortunately, mostly gullible people are just entering. And if I ask all of us, when was the last time you used the Bitcoin for anything? Ask in your circle. Nobody forever. Nobody has any plans. And that's where the point is. That's what the proof is in the use. Is it used for commerce or not? Daily buying and selling of anything by anybody.
Okay. We've got a couple of questions have come in, and we've probably got time for them, either to a brief answer. One is, how do we work with cryptocurrency or digital currency only in disaster areas such as the typhoon hit community, or telco infrastructures are prioritized for relief efforts? I'm not sure what the question is there. Yeah, how do we work with that? Another question is, so digital payment, including electronic money, doesn't do enough accommodating the transaction of retail payment, or what is the urgency to issue an Islamic cryptocurrency in the current conditions? So I think the questions are, what is the urgency to issue cryptocurrency now? And the formal question is about how do we work with cryptocurrency, particularly using it in disaster areas or post-disaster. answers very briefly, because we're starting to get to warning signs for wrapping up.
Well, think about it. Who can cash it in? If you send it to disaster area, who will cash it in? How will they do it? That's why nobody cares. You see, Corona ruled the world. Did anybody grab crypto as a solution to anything? Nobody cares about it. That's the reality.
Okay. Horia, any comments on those questions?
Well, because of the current infrastructure, of course, if you want to cash in, you cash in first and you give the money, which at the moment, because of the increase of the value, it will be a good donation, if we'd like to say it. But now, when we talk about urgency, we are talking about, as you said, Brother Chairman, back to the future. We are not talking about today. And we are not talking about, like using cryptocurrency in real world. We have our money, our medium of exchange in real world. We are talking about virtual world. Because if anything, Corona, the COVID-19 has actually taught us is that, as things grow, as we are actually facing the pandemic, our world, our digital world has shrunk. We actually we spend more hours each day on the internet compared to our real life. You could actually, you could be in your house 24 hours, not realizing actually 2/3 of the time you are on the internet. So this is happening. COVID-19 actually forced you to do that. Even those people in the very rural area who didn't have access to internet, now they are forced to actually get education, etc., etc. What we have to realize, the global world on the virtual world has shrunk. It's getting smaller, smaller. There is no boundary. And the more you realize that, one day you will need everything in virtual world. Don't actually link it to the real world, because that's different story altogether. If the issue is about the real world, think of the real world. But when we think about virtual world, think of you staying there, living your life there, having to get what you need from the internet. Nowadays, you can, our life is still very limited. We are still resorting to our shop next door, although you are using your e-cash. But then eventually, you will need things from other part of the world. And Brother Almir, you also have mentioned, with the advance of technology, everything will even get closer to us. By that time, we will need something. I'm not saying Bitcoin is ideal, but let's have a cryptocurrency and try to make it ideal, so that we can have a currency which is more idealistic from Sharia viewpoint, because it has its intrinsic value. Let's not have a single government actually being the person who dictate the value of it. Because now that's the reason why, some people, I say, actually some countries actually could, despite whatever economy situation they have, their country is so strong. So
to wrap up there.
Yes, we need something as a solution to our entirely and purely and exclusive virtual world. And I believe the answer is the cryptocurrency, whatever it is in the future will be.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes each to wrap up before I do some closing remarks. So I'm going to get Almir, since you just spoke, Horia. Almir, a couple of minutes on your closing arguments, just to conclude, please.
So, in conclusion, making money is not job for a private, for-profit entities. Most of them who are registered in Cayman Islands and other places. This creation of money is so important that it must be done by known entities who have a face and who can be held accountable, and there is some governance around it. And that's why always creation of money, other than gold and silver, was the prerogative of the government of the day. That's where authority is. And money is not issue of technology. Money is the issue of economy, and that economy is built on certain strength and authority and so on. So these things that we see for profit activity, where miners and other entities do it for the profit, which coin we divide now, there are 3,000 or more coins of this nature. everybody promising, everybody getting money from people. So this idea, unfortunately, that we will be better off if we just print our own money. Everybody can print money. Venezuela printed money, didn't benefit. It doesn't matter what you print. Somebody asked, but it's just a paper money. Calling this money just a paper money is taking Harvard University degree and say, this is just a paper degree, I can make my own degree, and everybody is making degrees. It's just fundamentally misunderstanding economics of money.
Okay. 2 minutes, please, Sister Huria, to wrap up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to conclude, I would like to highlight to everybody's attention that yes, it is not perfect, it is not ideal, but let's make it ideal. Let's let it mature and let's accept it. And whoever that have some issues about whatever challenges maybe technological wise, from speculation wise, because people keep it, people are not widely using it yet, etc., etc. Those are the operational issues that let us together try to make it better. And forgive if I was talking about Bitcoin. I'm not talking about a specific cryptocurrency. I'm just saying cryptocurrency in general will be the future. The future and the more ideal option that will be available to us in the virtual world. Because I remember back in 1998, I wrote a book, e-business, where I spoke about e-cash, e-check, other method of payment, and everyone actually was very pessimistic about it. Everyone said you wrote nonsense, but look at it today. What everyone said 22 years ago was a nonsense. Actually, it just everybody using it, even from the rural area. They have it. Even from the very remote area in Indonesia, they have GoPay, they have OVO, for example, which they can use as a method of payment. And yet, about 2 decades ago, when I wrote about it, people said it was nonsense. So I truly believe that this is the future, that we have to be prepared to accept it, not refute it, not reject it, try to make it more ideal to the way how we would like it to be. And again, forget about the issue of printing whatsoever, because we will be talking about the exclusive virtual world. Do not link it to our real world. So the whole idea is about acceptance, because like no matter how much you do not like gold, you do not like silver, but because these two commodities have intrinsic value, if you just do the comparative or comparison of their values to the value of commodities today, it's comparatively stable. You see, it's not like a particular government can actually, I want to dictate the value of the gold this much, the value of silver this much. So that's the whole idea, where eventually when people stop speculating, when people do not keep it for investment, rather actually use it as a medium of exchange, all these all these challenges, all these issues will one by one disappear. And I have written one paper examining about the Sharia viewpoint, whether or not it's actually Sharia compliant.
Your time is
up. We are
up.
not going to discuss about it. Yes, we're not going to discuss about it. But basically, this is why I'm actually proposing this, why I'm the proponent for this, because yes, I have analyzed it. It is Sharia compliant. Thank you very much.
Huria and Almir, thank you both very much indeed for your interesting and I'll say compelling arguments. I'm not used to sitting on the fence, but I think I have to declare neutrality on this, and I'm sure that people have learned a great deal from this discussion. For me, I think we have to keep working at this, and we have to create awareness, and we have to develop our understanding. And I use a phrase which I started coining perhaps 20 years ago. Islamic finance is about the efficient and effective mobilization of capital for the benefit of the real economy. Let's see that we can make cryptocurrency an important part of that. So with that, my thanks to both of you for an excellent discussion. I hope the audience has enjoyed it. We had some good questions coming through. And with that, I'll pass you back to Umar Munshi and the organizers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank
you. Sincere thanks to all three of you. MashaAllah, really amazing, compelling arguments. And I was at the edge of my seat to see who would be winning the debate, but it's very difficult between winners. Right, so thank you again so much, and hope to have you again, inshallah, participating in this session, in this event. We'll move on now
Thank you.
to the next.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Brother Umar, Brother Almir, and Brother Daud. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Right. Before I move on to the next segment or next session, I just wanted to, I was made aware that when I took over the mic earlier on before this session that nobody could hear me. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Muhammad Atiyah for his presentation, and just my view that it's something really to think about, because the context of startups in the US and in the rest of the world, especially the Muslim world, is quite different. So that approach of starting as a company but with a startup mindset may be something that makes a lot of sense to a lot of startups in this part of the world. All right, we are about 10 minutes behind schedule, but inshallah that's not a big issue. We have next coming up, we have a workshop by Mr. Farhan Noor, who is the head of capacity building at AAOIFI. And AAOIFI, for those of you who are not aware, is the accounting and auditing organization for Islamic finance institutions. And AAOIFI is a supporting partner to this event, to the Islamic FinTech Week, as our standards partner. AAOIFI creates standards for the Islamic finance industry globally, and they are the leader in that space. And today, Mr. Farhan Noor will be giving a very interesting workshop, a workshop with a topic that I and my team at Ethis have looked at as well, and we've adopted this. This is the AAOIFI Code of Ethics for Islamic finance professionals. And in my view, this is a very, very important workshop, because this is where we can pull in the fundamentals of Islamic finance, Islamic behavior, Islamic ethics integrated into the financial world. And inshallah, that will set a very good stage for the future of Islamic FinTech, or Islamic finance, which is the theme of the day of today's sessions. All right, so enough from me. Let's pass on the microphone to Mr. Farhan Noor. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Umar. Okay, I hope you can hear me just fine and also can see the screen. I've just turned on the presentation. Is it visible on your screen? Can anybody please confirm?
Yes, it's visible to me. It may take a few moments to load around the world.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وأجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good afternoon and even evening for all of you. I hope you all are comfortably seated, well settled, and looking forward to this workshop, which is going to be on AAOIFI Code of Ethics for Islamic finance professionals. And this is going to be a very high level, high powered introduction of the Code of Ethics, simply because I don't have the luxury of time to dive into the details of the code. So what I'll try to do is, within the next 40 minutes or so, cover the maximum surface area possible. That is, I'll try to introduce you to some of the key concepts of the Code of Ethics, inshallah. I personally believe that this is going to be a really exciting session, simply because ethics is an exciting topic, and at the same time, one of the most important, yet one of the most neglected topics in the world of Islamic finance, which is quite a shame, because come to think of it, Islamic finance at its core is nothing but ethical finance. And if I were to be more specific in my claim, I would say that Islamic finance is Sharia-based ethical finance. And the reason I say it's Sharia-based ethical finance and not just ethical finance is because if you compare conventional ethics with Islamic ethics, you will find that you will have entirely different personalities coming out of it. Take, for example, the prohibition of riba, which is interest or usury, as you know. Now, in the world of conventional ethics, riba is not an ethical issue in its entirety at all. Whereas in the world of Islamic ethics, riba is the mother of all unethical practices when we talk about business dealings. So clearly there is difference between conventional and Islamic ethics, and that's why I say that Islamic finance is Sharia-based ethical finance. And what we are going to discuss today is the AAOIFI Code of Ethics for Islamic Finance Professionals, which was issued in December 2019 and will become effective in January 2021. And this code is primarily based on the principles and rulings of Sharia. Now, before I go any further, let me thank my host, Elmangos and Ethis, for giving me this opportunity to talk about this code of ethics, and also be thankful and grateful to all of you for taking the time out, for being here, for participating in this incredibly important workshop. I just hope and pray that I live up to your expectations, inshallah. So let me now set up the context for the content to follow. And I just have a couple of points to share with you before I start talking about the core aspects of the Code of Ethics. To begin with, I want to emphasize on a point that the AAOIFI Code of Ethics does not seek to replace any existing conventional code of ethics, be it the ISWA Code of Ethics, which is applicable on the accountants and auditors, or the CFA Code of Ethics, which is applicable on investment professionals all over the world. The idea of developing this code is to complement and supplement all existing codes. And that is why we have taken the approach to develop this code of ethics based entirely on the principles and rulings of Sharia, simply because enough guidance or sufficient or adequate guidance is not there. It's not available to the Islamic finance professional. And secondly, the idea is to fill in the gaps and to value enhance existing codes. So when we talk about ISWA or the CFA Code of Ethics, what we have done is we have tried to identify the gaps and then in turn fill in those gaps from the Sharia perspective. And in those areas where we felt that there could be some improvement, value addition, again, from the Sharia perspective, we have done so. So these are the two approaches that we took when designing and developing the Code of Ethics. Now, the question is, who will be held accountable against this Code of Ethics? And the broad and the general answer is that all Islamic finance professionals working in Islamic financial institutions and social finance institutions such as Waqfs, Zakah and Qarz-based microfinance institutions, this code will be applicable on them. The second question is, will this code be applicable on non-Muslims? Yes, it will be, insofar that the code does not come into conflict with the established beliefs of the non-Muslims. And when that happens, then the obvious answer is that the provision, the specific requirement of the code will cease to exist and will become null and void and inapplicable on the non-Muslims. But all the other parts of the code which does not come into direct conflict with the existing religious beliefs of the non-Muslims, that will continue to remain applicable on them. So that's a second point. Third point is, will this code be applicable on Islamic finance professionals 24/7, 365? Now the answer is more or less yes. It will be applicable on quote unquote the professional life of the Islamic finance professional. So what I mean to say is that this code will not cease to exist being applicable on an IFP, which is Islamic finance professional, just because the act transpired after the official working hours. So for example, it happened after 6 o'clock or during the weekends. It could be Friday or Saturday and Sunday. The code will be applicable on you in your professional capacity. So for example, if you are representing Islamic finance and you happen to be participating in a wedding party, and there's a company which is talking negatively about Islamic banking. So as an Islamic finance professional, abiding by this code of ethics, you're supposed to intervene and correct all the wrong understanding and interpretations of Islamic finance and try to defend the industry. If you don't, then you cannot claim that this happened outside of my official working hours, so this is not applicable on me. No, you will be held in violation of the code. Similarly, if it's a weekend and you are found in a place where you should not be, for example, maybe an alcohol bar or a gambling house, then again you will be held accountable. The next question is, what if you have this AAOIFI code of ethics and you have other codes of ethics as well, maybe issued by the regulator of your jurisdiction, maybe issued by the Islamic financial institution where you are employed, or maybe it's issued by any other standard setting organization, or maybe a professional code of ethics such as ISBA and the CFA code of ethics. Now, if the two codes of ethics, the AAOIFI code of ethics and the non-AAOIFI code of ethics, come into conflict, then which of the code will prevail over the other? That's the question. The answer is that the code which has a stringent requirement in a given matter will prevail over the other. And I'll give you an example. The AAOIFI code of ethics requires Islamic finance professionals to safekeep their records for at least 3 years, whereas the CFA code of ethics require the finance professional or the investment professional to safekeep the record for at least 7 years. So which of the two will you abide with? The stringent in this case is clearly the one which is requiring you to safekeep the records for 7 years. That is the CFA code of ethics. So you'll abide by the CFA code of ethics and you will ignore AAOIFI code of ethics. So that's one point. Now let's talk about the structure of the code of ethics. The way we have structured the code of ethics is in 3 parts: Part A, Part B, and Part C. Part A is the conceptual framework, and this is the heart, the mind, and the soul of the code. This is the true value addition which the AAOIFI code of ethics bring to the world of finance in general and obviously Islamic finance in specific. Now, this conceptual framework comprises of 4 components: the ethical paradigm, the Adl and Ihsan equation, the ethical virtues, and the ethics protocols. Now, these 4 components, they make up the conceptual framework. And the conceptual framework basically tells you how to think about and how to conceptualize the idea of ethics in your mind. And that's a truly important and significant value addition from this code of ethics. Then we have Part B and Part C, which talks about the violations and the ideas of the ethical virtues. So the violations basically tell you how to uphold the ethical virtue. And the ideas tell you how to promote the ethical virtues. So the violations basically set the minimum benchmark which you need to achieve at all times in all work activities. Whereas the ideas, they tell you how you can aspire for something bigger than that, something beyond the minimum requirement. So this is the overall structure of the code. And in this presentation today, in this workshop, we are going to talk about the conceptual framework predominantly. I mean, this is what we are going to actually spend our valuable time on understanding. Now, this is just another layout, another presentation, a style of presentation of the same thing that we discussed on the previous slide. We start with the ethical paradigm, and then we go down into the Adl and Ihsan equation, and then the ethical virtues and the ethics protocols. The same content, but with added details to it. Now let's talk about the ethical paradigm. So the big question here is, what is ethics? And this is such an important topic, and generally when I have this workshop, I allocate at least 30 minutes to the participants to answer this question, both as group and as individual. And then I try to formulate some kind of summary, a cohesive understanding of what the participants feel is ethics, because this is very important. If you do not engage in an intellectual exercise at your own end and at your own level to answer this all important question, then basically you will be lost later on. Basically, when we're talking about code of ethics, we need to have a very concrete, tangible and legitimate understanding of what ethics is. Here, obviously, I cannot go into that exercise, so I'll just continue. Now, the answer to this question is given in the ethical paradigm. And let me say a few words about the ethical paradigm. The ethical paradigm is basically the starting point and the ending point of the code. Everything else apart from the ethical paradigm are just details, and more of details explaining and expounding what's there on your screen right now at the moment. Just these two sentences, which are part of ethical paradigm, are being explained by the rest of the code. Every single word that comes after the ethical paradigm is there to actually explain what's stated here in paragraph 12 and paragraph 13. So this clearly suggests that ethical paradigm is truly significant and very important to the code of ethics. Now let me read out these two statements. Paragraph 12 of the code says that the Islamic finance professional shall achieve adl in all work activities at all times, failure of which shall constitute as zulm. And paragraph 13 states that to achieve and maintain adl, especially on a continuing basis, an Islamic finance professional should target ihsan in all matters as a first step. So the answer to the question, what is ethics, is these three words: the adl, ihsan and zulm. An Islamic finance professional, in order for him to be ethical, he needs to achieve and maintain adl in all activities at all work times. When you achieve adl, it means you are ethical. So the answer to the question, what is ethics? Ethics is about achieving justice, achieving adl in all work activities at all work times. So these are the definitions there on your screen. You can have a read. Adl is about putting something or someone in its rightful place or position. Yeah, so that's the meaning of adl that we have ascribed to this concept. Obviously, the opposite of adl is zulm, which means that if you don't put something in its rightful place and position, then it means that you have incurred transgression or oppression or injustice or a violation or even tyranny and immorality, and that's zulm. Ihsan is something you go beyond adl. So we have used the word excellence, and we have defined excellence as something that you do in a manner which in given resources and constraints and circumstances cannot be done better. So this is what ethics is. Ethics is about achieving justice, and once you exceed justice, it means you have achieved excellence. If you fall short of justice, it means you have entered the realms of zulm. Now the best way to conceptualize and understand ethical paradigm is by the usage of the XY graph on your screen. The X line or the horizontal line is the line of adl, and the vertical line is depending. If you are above the line of adl, it means you are in the area of ihsan, and if you're below the line of adl, it means you are in the area of zulm. So there are 4 points that I'll just quickly go through, because I've already spent 20 minutes on the ethical paradigm and we still need to cover a lot of ground actually. Point number 1 is that an Islamic finance professional must be on the line of adl at all times in all work activities. So this is the most important requirement of the AAOIFI Code of Ethics. It requires Islamic finance professionals to ensure that they are always on the line of adl. If you are below the line of adl, it means you've entered in the realm of zulm and you need to do something to get out of it. And if you go beyond the line of adl, it means you are in the area of ihsan, which is where you want to be and which is where you want to stay and make it a permanent place of residence. So this is point number 1. Point number 2 is very important. Point number 2 says that in order for you to achieve and maintain adl, you have to target ihsan as your first step. Especially if you are talking about achieving and maintaining adl on a long-term, ongoing, continuing basis. Because if you have the mindset like I have, that I'll just hit the minimum benchmark, just do the bare minimum, just have a checklist to ensure that I've taken care of the absolute minimum requirement in a given task, it is quite possible for you to be off by even 1%, and then you will find yourself in the area of zulm. Why? Because you targeted adl. So either you hit it or you miss it. You have to be absolutely 100% hitting the line of adl, which is practically speaking impossible, especially if you stretch it over a period of a long time. It's not possible for you to sustain yourself hitting that benchmark on a continuing basis. That is why the quote says that in order for you to achieve and maintain the line of adl at all work times, in all work activities, you have to target ihsan, target excellence in all your work activities and at all work times. Then even if you are off by 10%, you will still be in the area of ihsan. And at the bare minimum, you will still be at the line of adl because you targeted ihsan. So the most you can fall is fall till the line of adl. This is an important point. I'll skip point 3. Point 4 says that this line of adl is subjective and will change from person to person and situation to situation. So I'll just leave it at that. So this is the grand summary of the ethical paradigm. Again, I'd like to reiterate that as an Islamic finance professional, whether you're in fintech or Islamic banking or takaful or capital markets, or as an entrepreneur, you have to ensure that you have to stay on the line of adl at all times in all work activities. That is the bare minimum requirement of the IFW Code of Ethics. Now, the question is, how can you achieve and maintain adl in all work activities and at all times as required by the ethical paradigm? Because it's one thing to say that you need to be on the line of adl, but you need more guidance on that. I mean, I can't just tell you achieve justice, but what is justice? That's another question. So we need to have a lower level of abstraction. So we started with the highest level of abstraction, which is ethics. Then we distilled it and we came with 3 concepts, the adl, ihsan and zulm concepts. Now we are trying to distill adl further because we want to understand how to achieve and maintain adl. For that, we discuss the AAOIFI adl and ihsan equation. Now the adl and ihsan equation comprises of 4 elements, and this is the equation which you can see on your screen. In order for you to achieve and maintain adl in your work activities, you need to do 4 things. Number 1, you need to have the right intention and the right mindset. Number 2, you need to do the right thing. Number 3, you need to do the right thing in the right manner as well. And number 4, you need to engage with others positively. So you need to balance all these 4 components or elements of the equation at all times to ensure that you are achieving and maintaining adl. Now there's one component which is missing. That component is the outcome of your action. That is absolutely excluded from the equation, simply because the outcome does not determine whether the act that you performed is ethical or not. You may have done something which is very good, but with bad intentions, then it's unethical. Similarly, if you target the outcome, then it's quite possible that what you're doing is trying to justify the ends, the means with ends, or what do you say, justifying means with the end. Or in other words, what you're trying to do is justify the ends with the means, or something to that effect. I mean, my brain has stopped working, but you get the point. The outcome of your action has been completely excluded from the equation right now. These are the 4 things that you need to take into consideration when trying to achieve and maintain adl. Now you will ask me, what is right intention and what is right mindset? The right intention as defined by the code of ethics is as follows: that you need to do every single thing that you do for the sake of Allah, with the objective to gain His and only His pleasure and reward, and to avoid His and only His wrath and punishment. So your focus of attention when doing something should not be any person, any policy, or anything, but rather to please Allah. And obviously, if you please Allah, it means that you have to abide by the law of the land, the law of IFI, the code of ethics, and so many other elements which are involved.
Brother,
So this is the right intention when doing something. You need to please Allah. Yeah.
hello? Can you hear me? Sorry. Your slide is still on the first page. We can't see the next few slides. Maybe you can scroll down.
Okay, you can only see the first page. This is what you're saying?
Yeah, we're seeing your PowerPoint. The first page, and now is the next page. Now in slide 15.
Okay, can you see the slide 15 now?
Yes.
Okay. Then let me just quickly go through just to have a visual understanding of what I've been talking about.
Sure. I was not sure whether you were still in the introduction. Yes. Please
No.
run through quickly. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the structure I was talking about, just for your visual understanding. This is the structure, the part A, part B, and the part C I was talking about. This is the other view of the structure. Then we have already covered ethical paradigm. I talked about three concepts: adl, ihsan, and zulm. I talked about this XY graph. Again, this is very good for your visual understanding. It's there on your slide. It has 4 points. I discussed 2 points in detail, relative detail. Now we are on the adl and ihsan equation, and this is the equation that I was talking about, that there are 4 elements: having the right intention and the right mindset, doing the right thing, doing it in the right manner, and engaging with others positively. Okay. Now we are on slide number 15. Here I was defining what intention is, what right intention is. So the right intention is what I stated. The right mindset is that you need to have positive and hopeful attitude of Allah Almighty's will and decree concerning your life. So this is how we have defined intention, the right intention and the right mindset. Now let's talk about element number 2, which is doing the right thing. Now what is the right thing? The code of ethics says that the right thing is that which is sanctioned to be good, virtuous, and ideal by Sharia and the law of the land. So that's the right thing. This is what you need to do. What has been sanctioned by the Sharia and the law of the land. This is the way we have defined element number 2. Element number 3, you need to do the right thing in the right manner. So, sorry, I'm just... Okay, so there are 3 parts to this. In order for you to do something right in the right manner, you need to take care of 3 things: proficiency, timeliness, and consistency. And proficiency is related to your area of expertise. You need to achieve absolute mastery in your area of specialization. This is what proficiency is all about. Then you have to consider timeliness aspect as well, because if you do something but at the wrong time, you were supposed to say the right thing, you were supposed to be honest about something, but you decided to be honest 2 years later. Now that doesn't count really. The matter is what it's under the bridge. The water is under the bridge. Now there's no point. So timeliness is another factor to ensure that you're doing the right thing in the right manner. And timeliness in the code of ethics has been defined as follows: that you need to do it at the right time, especially in a bid to prevent possible unethical situation from happening or to control a bad situation from turning worse. So this is what timeliness is about. You need to take action to ensure that an unethical act should not take place, and if it has taken place, it should not worsen any further. Then consistently, you need to do the same thing, the good thing, the right thing that you need to do it consistently. That is, you should walk the talk basically. What you do in private should be done in public as well. or the other way around. What you do in public should be done in private as well. Then element number 4, you need to engage with others positively. How do you do that? There are 2 ways: persuasion and become a role model for others. Your actions speak louder than words, actually. So becoming a role model is the most persuasive way to encourage others and engage with others positively. So these were the 4 elements of the AAOIFI, Adl and Ihsan equation. So we have discussed the ethical paradigm, the Adl and Ihsan equation. Now the next question is, how can we be more specific about the elements of the Adl and Ihsan equation? So again, I repeat myself for the benefit of those who just joined. We started with the concept of ethics, and we know it's so broad, so general, that we had to distill it further. And how we did that was to introduce the concept of ethical paradigm. But then ethical paradigm itself, when we talk about Adl and Ihsan, it's again broad concepts. We have to distill it down further. We need to unwind, unravel, unpack these terms. How did we manage to do that? We introduced the concept of Adl and Ihsan equation, and we talked about 4 elements. Now we need to further unpack, unwind, and unravel these 4 elements. So when we say have the right intention and the right mindset, what exactly are we talking about? Yes, I know that I defined, but let's take the element number 2, which says that do the right thing. Now, doing the right thing can be millions and billions of things that can come under this category. What exactly do you want me to do? So here comes the 3rd component of the conceptual framework, which is the ethical virtues. And this is what we have done. We have ascribed 6 ethical virtues to these 4 components of the Adl and Ihsan equation. So when we talk about having the right intention, we want the Islamic finance professional to think about the ethical virtue of taqwa. When we say the Islamic finance professional need to have the right mindset, we want him to think about the concept of tawakkul. When we say he needs to do the right thing, then he needs to just focus on 2 points: sidq and amana, truthfulness and trustworthiness. That is it. There could be hundreds of other things that could come in this category, but we have limited to only 2 things. This is all that we are asking from the Islamic finance professional when we say that do the right thing. So do the right thing in terms of sidq and amana. When we say do the right thing in the right manner, we want him to think about kuwa principle, kuwa virtue. When we say engage with others positively, we're talking about tawasi bil haq, encouraging others, inviting others towards truth. So these are the 6 ethical virtues. Brother Umar, can you please confirm how much time do I have remaining with me? Okay, I'll continue. I believe I have 15 to 20 minutes left. So now we need to understand what taqwa is. We need to understand what tawakkul is, sidq, kuwa, and tawasi bil haq. So we'll focus on just a couple of ethical virtues because we don't have too much time left now. When we talk about sidq, what is sidq? Sidq has been translated as integrity, and what it means is that you have these 4 components: beliefs, intentions, words, and actions. You need to achieve synergy and harmony between these 4 components: beliefs, intentions, words, and actions. So what you believe should translate into your intentions, and then that should translate into your words or your speech, and then that should translate in your actions. If you believe in something else and you do something else, that's not sidq. There has to be complete harmony and synergy between the 4 components. And we have explained the concept of sidq in terms of verbal violations.
Consent on a few items to continue.
Sorry. In terms of verbal and non-verbal violations and ideals. Now, amana is a very, very important topic. These are the 6 resources that have been entrusted with most of the Islamic finance professionals. If you are a manager, then there are human beings or your subordinates or your assistants working for you. So that is an amana. Those human beings and their dignities are to be considered as amana. Then there are some assets entrusted to you, money and property. Then information definitely is also an asset. Intellectual property, proprietary information, maybe business secrets, business models, pricing strategies, and everything. These are intellectual properties and information as well. So this is amana for you. And representation. Representation is when I'm representing AAOIFI, then I have certain powers, I have certain authorities, which I can abuse or I can use to my own advantage, to my organization's advantage, to the Islamic finance industry as a whole, the advantage to the industry. So this is amana. This is another aspect of amana. And then ecology, the environment is also an amana entrusted to you. Then kuwa, when we say that you need to do the right thing in the right manner, this ethical virtue comes up into play, the kuwa virtue. And we are saying you need to consider kuwa from 5 different perspectives: the proficiency, compliance, knowledge, skills, and attitude. So you need to continue achieving mastery over your area of specialization. Then you need to be compliant with the law of the land. If you don't know the law of the land, if you don't know the requirement and the provisions of the code of ethics and other policies and other documents which apply on you, then how can you be compliant to it? So you need to have knowledge and then be compliant to it as well. Then you need to further your knowledge and your skills and attitude. This will become a part of your kuwa ethical virtue. And then tawasi bil haq. So let's talk about the ethics protocol. This is the last component of the conceptual framework. Here again, okay, let me just dive into the meat of the matter. There are basically 4 questions which needs to be answered when we're talking about ethics. Question number 1, imagine a situation, or just imagine yourself as an Islamic finance professional. You've done something unethical and only you are aware of it. Nobody in the world knows about it. You've done something unethical. Maybe you've backbited or slandered somebody, or you've been arrogant with somebody else. You only know about that, and you know for sure that you will not be held accountable by your respective organization or by any other authority in this world. What are you going to do about it? This is question number 1. Question number 2 is, can an Islamic finance professional be held accountable for the unethical practices or actions or behaviors of another Islamic finance professional? This is question number 2. Question number 3 is, how can you as an Islamic finance professional make ethically defensible decisions? Your decisions should be ethically compliant. How can you be certain about, how can you be assured that your decision that you have taken is an ethical decision? That's question number 3. Question number 4 is, how should you respond as an Islamic finance professional to an unethical action of another? So for example, when you witness somebody misappropriating Islamic finance institutions' funds, and they're abusing company resources, and they're conniving with other for insider trading, or not disclosing material conflict of interest, and you understand that this is happening in front of you, how do you deal with that situation? How do you respond to that situation? So that's question number 4. All these 4 questions are answered by ethics protocols. So question number 1 was, how do you respond to a situation where you only know of your unethical behavior? The protocol is the self-purification protocol. The second question is, can you be held accountable for the unethical action of others? You have to refer to the liability avoiding protocol. The third question was, how can you make ethically compliant decisions? And you have to refer to the decision-making protocol. And then the last question was, how do you respond to an unethical action of another Islamic finance professional? For that, you need to refer to the violation escalation protocol. Now, I don't think that I have time to go into the details, and details matter when we're talking about these protocols. So, okay, so what I've done is I've explained to you some of the most important points of Part A, the conceptual framework of the AOIFI Code of Ethics for Islamic finance professionals. I talked about the ethical paradigm. I talked about the Adl and Ihsan equation, the ethical virtues, and the ethics protocols. Now, what's left is Part B and Part C, and I'm not going to discuss that at all. Just show you the slides. So when we are talking about the violations could be transaction related, culture related, leadership or management related, interpersonal related, or personal related. And this is one example of the violation, which is misrepresentation. And this is one of the value additions of the AOIFI Code of Ethics. Now, one thing what we could have done is we could have spent like 3 or 4 pages explaining what misrepresentation is. And this is something what all the existing Code of Ethics have done. But what we have done is we have taken a different route altogether, and we have developed something known as checkposts. And I strongly recommend you to download the AOIFI Code of Ethics from our AOIFI.com website. And you go through the code and you will find several checkposts for some of the most important violations, such as misrepresentation. And here what we are trying to do, the value addition here is that we are teaching you how to understand and how to interpret a situation where misrepresentation has taken place. So in this case, we are saying, think about 4 things. There are 4 checkposts. Think about representation, think about inducement, think about falsification or falsify, and the materiality. These are the 4 checkposts you need to think about when deciding and determining whether a situation has given rise to misrepresentation or not. This is one of the value additions of the Code of Ethics. Now, the details, especially for misrepresentations, are so much that it's impossible for me to even spend a minute on this. It's very comprehensive. This is another example of a checkpost for one of the violations of SITH, which is mis-selling. Again, how do you understand mis-selling? There are 3 checkposts: suitability, integrity, and clarity. Once you go through these 3 checkposts, inshallah, this is what we hope, you'll be in a better situation to say with certain level of confidence that this event has resulted in mis-selling because you went through these checkposts. Otherwise, the other option was to draft 4 or 5 paragraphs explaining what mis-selling is. And that would have been very cumbersome and inefficient way of explaining the violation. Anyway, then Part C talks about the ideals of the ethical virtues, and here are some of the ideals that we have proposed. This is something that you can do which is beyond the minimum requirement of the code. So clearly, if you fail in achieving these ideals, you have not breached the Code of Ethics. This is optional. This is highly recommended and encouraged. Okay, now, Brother Umar, are you there? Is anybody there from Elmango or Ethis? I just want to know whether I can have these concept checkers done with the participants of the workshop. I would like to read this out and invite the participants to share their answers in the chat group. Is that possible?
Sure, I think that will be great. There's just a lag when I want to unmute, so sometimes it takes a bit of time. I've been trying to unmute. But yes, you can definitely ask the questions.
Okay.
And we can respond through the chat.
Yes, I think this will be quite engaging and interactive, and it will give the participants an opportunity to have their say, in addition to the questions that they want to ask. So this is, I hope you can see the screen, the concept checker, which is there on the screen. This is a typical situation where an Islamic bank, even though its customer service is the worst, recently became the largest Islamic bank in its country in terms of asset size. Now, to celebrate the achievement, Mr. X, the CEO, issued a full-page newspaper advertisement informing the public that his bank is now the largest and the best Islamic bank in the country. Now, what you need to do is identify the correct answer, whether it's option A, option B, or option C. Option A says that Mr. X has not violated the code, since the newspaper advertisement he got published is entirely factual in content. Option number B is Mr. X is in violation of the code because he claimed to be something which the bank is not. And option number C is Mr. X is in violation of the code because it is considered extravagance to publish an expensive newspaper advertisement when that money could have been best utilized to improve customer service. And it's stated there in the case scenario that the customer service is possibly the worst in the country. So which of the three options do you think is the best answer? May I invite all the participants to suggest their answers in the chat box?
You can just type it in. No wrong answers until they are wrong.
Can you see this the presentation on your screen?
Yes, it's very clear. It's been clear.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to give them a taste, a feel for how the code of ethics is applied in real world. So, because I know when we talk about ethics, everybody says that this is a truly universal concept, which is inbuilt in all of us. It's part of human nature, and we can easily identify ethical practice from an unethical practice. So, we created these scenarios to test that confidence level that you know the answer. And what I've found out is that the answer is not that easy. It's not that easy. You really have to think about, and you really need to understand the requirement of the code of ethics in order to be 100% correct with confidence to say that this option is right or this option is wrong. Anyway, I'll just move on. These were some of the concept checkers I wanted to do with the participants. I think that's about it. I want to end my presentation now with a big vote of thanks to Elmangos and Ethis for giving me the opportunity. Thank you so very much indeed. I really, truly appreciate it. If anybody has any question, okay, now I'm starting to get the answers. Okay, so they want to do
sometimes
this.
there's a bit of a lag.
Okay.
We have quite a lot of people that believe they will get this.
Okay, so Fawad and Mariam, they answer C, and guest 636 and Amanda, they say it's option B. Now clearly you can see, the chat was disabled. Clearly you can see that there is difference of opinion already, and this is just the first concept checker. Okay, may I request Hassan Mursal Hassar to please explain why you think this is B. The correct answer is B. Okay, now. Can anybody please share the justification, the rationale for saying B? And this would be the last concept checker, and after that you can ask your questions as well, because it's 5 o'clock already. I want to close on time. I don't want to, go beyond the time allocated to me.
Farhan, I think we can spend an additional 5-10 minutes or so. It's not a problem if you have time. I think the participants are quite interested. If you don't mind, I can answer on behalf what I feel why B would be the case.
Yes.
All right. So ideally it would be C in my opinion. I mean, it's not a straight out answer, but in today's practices is very common, in my opinion, actually not B, but to be A. Because when you're the biggest, that's typically taken as the best. So to me, the word best is what's in contention, whether it's misrepresentation. Ideally, it should be C, but I don't think that happens very often.
You're spot on, actually. The answer is B, and the rationale you gave is correct. The issue is when you claim yourself to be the largest and the best Islamic bank. Now, you have the justification and the rationale and the basis for saying you are the largest in asset size. That's okay. But how do you come up with this this title that you are the best Islamic bank. This is something which is extravagance. You are trying to add value to something where it doesn't exist. This is kind of, it's a breach of the sidq ethical virtue. Okay? So this is as per the code of ethics, which as stated in the code of ethics. You want to have another concept checker? Okay.
Yeah, I believe that should be okay. Only a few slides after this, right?
Actually, it's up to you. I have about 8 or 9 concept checkers. I don't want to go through all of them. This was just get a feel for the code, how you actually implement it in the real world scenarios. So
the
if
want
the
to continue?
participants have any specific questions, then I'll be more than willing to answer those questions.
Sure. I think everybody wants to continue to see the next checker.
Okay, so the next checker is this. In response to a question from a potential investor about the quality of the fatwa compared to those issued by competitor banks, Mr. X truthfully states that the IFI's Sharia scholar who issued the fatwa is a pioneer of Islamic finance and a prolific writer, and that his fatwas are highly regarded and sought after both locally and globally. He also added that his fatwa are always authentic. So let's understand what's going here. Mr. X was asked by a potential investor about the quality of the fatwa issued by his employer and those issued by the competitor banks. And this is what he had to say. What he said was that my Sharia scholar who issued the fatwa is a pioneer of Islamic finance and he's a great writer and his fatwas are highly regarded and sought after. And the case makes it very clear that these are truthful statements. So you cannot contest whether the Sharia scholar is indeed a pioneer of Islamic finance. He indeed is. Okay, so do not be deceived on that part. When it says Mr. X truthfully states, then let's take it at face value that these are truth statements. Now option A is Mr. X has not violated the code since it is established that he stated only truthful facts to the potential investor. Option B is Mr. X is in a violation of the code because he responded with a vague answer to a clear question asked by a potential investor. And Mr. X, this is option number C, is in violation of the code because he's using truthful facts to deceive the potential investor into believing something which may not necessarily be true. Now think about this for a minute and try to answer this question. It's a bit tricky. And unless you have read the code of ethics where the answer is very clear, I think you might have some problem in answering this question.
I guess it takes a moment for the questions.
Sure.
For the answers. Anyone? A, B, or C?
A. Okay, so is Mr. X qualified to judge competitor banks? A. C. I would really appreciate if you can give the rationale as well, because the answer is not important. The rationale is important. You can still arrive at the right answer, but with the wrong justification. Okay, so I believe that, Majority of them believe it's answer C, but nobody has given the justification. I'm interested in the justification because I believe that you might have the right answer, but not necessarily the right justification for it. Because we are very good at guessing the right answer. We have gone through this education process. So we know how to solve the exams. He's not to the point answering the question asked. Fatwa is always right is hyperbole. It may be true that they are qualified in terms of fatwa, but the claim to be always true in terms of fatwa is not correct. Okay, so the answer is C, and I think Brother Adil Faisal hit the nail on its head. The statement that Mr. X said that the fatwas are always authentic. Now you have to understand. Now this is a very tricky question. You need to understand exactly what's going on here. Mr. X was asked a very specific question to compare your fatwa with a competitor fatwa. And his answer was that my fatwa is always authentic, which in other words means and implies that the competitor fatwas are not always authentic. So what he's trying to do, Mr. X, he's using truthful facts to deceive. And this is called paltering. Paltering is a violation of the ethical virtue of sidq. It's there mentioned in our code of ethics and has been properly explained as well. Paltering is done by, very sophisticated people, very learned people. What they do is they use truthful facts to deceive others. And this is something which Allah Almighty Himself has highlighted in the Holy Quran. In Surah Munafiqun, in the initial verses, He says that the Munafiqun, even though they say the right thing, they are liars. So this is paltering. What the Munafiqun said was, there is only one Allah. To Allah belongs all power, all might. There is nobody like Him. He has no son, He has no daughter, He has no equal or co-partners. And that Prophet Muhammad is the last Prophet Muhammad. They used to claim all this, but they were doing this to deceive the other people. So this is called paltering basically. This is what Mr. X is doing here. I hope I was able to explain that. Let's take another concept checker. So Mr. X, in order to secure a vote, asks a colleague during the executive committee meeting for an honest opinion on a brilliant proposal developed by the CEO. In his mind, he's expecting a favorable opinion. So Mr. X obviously wants to secure votes on a document, and what he does is he seeks an honest opinion from his colleague by saying that this is a brilliant proposal developed by CEO. Obviously, you should vote in favor for it. So where is the unethical practice in this? Option number A. Mr. X is in violation of the code because he's leading the colleague to agree to something without him realizing it. Option B, Mr. X is in violation of the code because he is not neutral in his expectations of the opinions of the colleague. And option C is Mr. X has simply not violated the code at all. There is no violation here. So what do you think is the best answer in this case?
Yeah, please share your justification as well.
Okay, Mr. B believes that because he did not have the right intention, he's violating the code of ethics. Okay. Any other answer? Okay, so another answer is C, because the expectations of people is not ethical conduct. The intention is to get honest opinion. Marking it already as brilliant creates a bias. Okay, so the correct answer is A by Adil Faisal, and he has actually given the right justification as well. So you need to understand what's going on here. This is called leading statement. Leading statement is a violation of the ethical virtue of sidq. It's called leading statement. And what Mr. X is actually trying to do is he's trying to manipulate his colleague into issuing a favorable opinion on the proposal by prejudging it as brilliant, and then further strengthening its credibility by using the CEO's name. Now, if he really wanted an honest opinion on the proposal, he could have just simply asked for it. He could have just shared the document with his colleague and said, "What's your opinion on this?" But once you say, "Oh, this is a brilliant proposal," and not only that, it's developed by the CEO, then what exactly are you trying to do? You're trying to manipulate him into saying that this is an acceptable proposal, because if he says something negative about the proposal, now he has something in his mind that he is going to be basically contradicting the CEO's opinion. Who's going to contradict CEO's opinion? So he's trying to manipulate. Okay, I have a poll on a scale of 5. Are you enjoying the webinar? So I'll do it later. So this is the answer. Mr. Faisal, Adil Faisal is correct. I think he was the only one who got this right. You want me to continue, or should we end here? If somebody has any question about the AAOIFI Code of Ethics, or any requirement about the requirements of the Code of Ethics, or should we close now? Okay, I just want to point out why B is not the right answer. See, there is no ethical obligation on Mr. X to keep his expectations neutral. I mean, yes, I can give you the proposal to give your feedback, but I can have the expectation in my mind that you're going to be favorable to that proposal. If I don't have a favorable expectation, then why would I, engage in such an activity to ask somebody to give their approval on it? I mean, so there is no ethical obligation as such to have neutral expectation in your mind about such matters. So that's why answer B is not correct.
Alhamdulillah. I think maybe if there are any questions on the rest of the previous parts of the presentation on the code in general, yeah, then please feel free to ask these questions before maybe Brother Farhan can give a brief wrap up summary maybe. Yeah, there's a question here. So the expectation has nothing to do with intention.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, there are a few questions coming in. Hello. Can you all hear me? Can somebody respond and let me know whether you can hear me? So I'm not sure whether it's my internet or... It looks like Brother Farhan is not here. All right. Okay, thank you. So while I sent him a message, just to repeat, this Code of Ethics document, you can download it from aofi.com. The full document is there. And I can share maybe a little bit, because I'm not sure whether he'll be able to join us again. Yeah, but I can share a little bit of our own experience. When the Code of Ethics came out a few months ago, we at Ethis, our head of Sharia and our COO, Mufti Yusuf, he spent some time to look through it and to discuss about certain aspects of it with AOFI as well, because Yusuf is a master trainer at AOFI, and then we also started training internally our team throughout the organization about the Code of Ethics. My view of this is there's multiple benefits for an organization. Because when there's essentially not only integrity, but integrity there's linked and there's directly related to religion and faith, as well as to logic and outcomes. And somebody asked earlier about intention. So I'm not an expert in the code, but yeah, everything that the code explains, a lot of it also ties back to the intention, because you have to look at suitability and so on. So yeah, that's what maybe I can share. As a fintech, especially, in a startup environment or in a small company, individuals, interns, and so on can come in and out. And as much as we try to have integrity, governance, and compliance, the ethics of it can make a lot of difference, because especially for new people who are new to it, there are many cases of potential ambiguity when it comes to ethics. Yeah. So in that situation, that's where something like the Code of Ethics can be a very powerful method, approach for the team and for all the people in the organization to access a reference point and to understand what to do in that circumstance, inshallah. So I guess Brother Farhan is not coming back for some reason. Yeah, and with that, we probably can end this session. And before we go, I mean, it's already 10:15. So before we go, I want to highlight a few things. First of all, thank you, all of you, for your participation, for your attention, and for investing your time. What I feel going through these sessions as a participant is, including previous sessions, is really like a crash course where there's so much detail and insight that usually would take me a long time to try and read up and learn and understand whether I'm getting it from the right sources and so on. So a lot of perspectives, a lot of value. Alhamdulillah, I hope it has been beneficial for all of you as well. And look forward to the next few days, and I look forward to your participation in those few days as well. To repeat, we have 2 segments per day, and each day there's a specific theme. Tomorrow it is the future of Islamic fintech. The day after it is about investing, and the day after that fintech for financial inclusion. And each day there'll be 2 segments. The first segment is from 3 to 5. Sometimes it goes beyond that a little bit in Malaysia time, and from 8 to 10, or like today 10:15 for the night session. So I'll join you for the night session for the next few days. Inshallah, I'll be your host and wearing a few hats. And please feel free to reach out to us as well if you have any input or feedback. And there are handouts here. You can download handouts from the platform, from the Big Marker platform. There are all sorts of handouts there. And inshallah, we look forward to having you here as well. Yeah. For those of you who have not gotten tickets for the next few days, you can still get tickets. I think most, or at least a few of the sessions are sold out or fully booked. But there are still sessions available, so do register for it online, right? So with that, thank you everybody. I'll thank Mr. Farhad Noor as well, although he's not here. I'll show him the recording. Thank you so much for sharing and giving the workshop earlier. I believe it's been value for everyone. And again, I repeat, do take a look and download it and see if you can implement it in your own organization, inshallah. And this is the end of day one of the Islamic FinTech Week. It's been very enriching and exciting, and I thank you all again, once again, for being here. And take care, and see you tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Startup world is so shiny and enticing from the outside, yet it is risky and unpredictable from the inside. Did you know that 3 out of every 5 startups fail due to poor products delivered to the market? Nevertheless, there is no better time to think about your own startup. Shifting your services or your line of business to achieve the utmost ambition is more attainable now than ever before. You are on the verge of a new and exciting venture, and KnowledgeNet is here to help you. KnowledgeNet is interested to talk about your idea and get it into reality through our leading solution, iMore for Startups. iMore is a flexible and easy to understand cloud development space, and our developers can manipulate it to create a secure and scalable applications for you. With iMore, our developers can integrate your functions and develop your web and mobile app in a fraction of the cost that it normally takes. No more hiccups. iMore is your scalable, secure, and malleable platform that will rapidly get your startup into the rollout phase. Besides helping you to roll out a seamless product to the entrepreneurial area, iMore gives you the power to deploy and integrate with wide range of application servers, WebLogic, WebSphere, and Wildfly, JBoss, you name it. Finally, you can tailor stunning and interactive dashboards with just a few clicks. With iMore and the professional team that is leading KnowledgeNet, you have yourself a lifetime partner to ensure your success. Now it's your turn to make the right move, as your tech startup is now halfway launched. To find more about iMore, visit
Rasmikan Global Islamic FinTech 2019 di Kuala Lumpur.
This year we started with This is an excellent event, an event that is definitely needed by all of our member countries and globally. We believe ICD platform to have the global Islamic digital to be the future. Throughout our 119 financial institutions, we're hoping to use the digital Islamic capabilities to reach out. Institutions, we're hoping to use the digital Islamic capabilities to reach out.
This event is of strength because of the collaborators that you have. And in fact, this is also not the first program that you have conducted. It shows that it is sustainable in a sense. It is highly important. It is actually embedded in our Islamic finance blueprint, which has also been introduced by our Bank Negara Malaysia and Security Commissions.
Islamic economy need to go to more new kind of technology. We need to develop together, just like creating Islamic digital community, not only between banks and industry players, but also include international stakeholders as well. Halal market is very big, and it's still growing every year. So there's a big opportunity for each of the stakeholders to produce halal service with a good quality to develop all the economy around the world.
I really understand now why this event has been successful last year and why it's even more successful this year. You still get the feeling that everybody gets a chance to cross-pollinate all of the ideas from across different industries. However, all within the framework of the Islamic economy. We just brainstormed about what are the ways with which we can make this event sustainable oriented. The first step from the organizers' side was that they didn't print brochures that people just simply throw away. They provided everything digitally. However, we wanted even to take it a step further and say that, okay, how about we become the first event in the world that accepts payment for the event tickets in electronic waste? We didn't know whether that would work because it has never been done before, but I'm glad to say that we launched it and there were people who actually came to this event who paid for half of their tickets with electronic waste.
We need to put the Islamic
to this place to be able to
Muslims to be able to understand how to reach out to a non-Muslim demographic. Storytelling for
all of our targets. The speakers that you've invited are experts in their own field, and I think the collage that has been created really will bring us to a higher level playing field. We rely on ICD's expertise in the area to be able to endorse us and share the model of the IAP to the various sovereigns to their various member countries.
Malaysia presents an ideal ground for us to present and see how the Islamic finance industry here react to our solution. While they are the leaders in Islamic finance, I found that actually there is some good reaction from the CEOs and the top managements of the banks that we met through the conference. And this type of conferences bring people from all different sides of the world to this place to be able to share the experience, share knowledge, work together to come up with a solution that actually fit the purpose for everybody.
I thought it was a really good idea for someone to create a platform, allows more meaning amongst the Muslims to be able to understand how to reach out to a non-Muslim demographic. Storytelling, their market feels something now. There's in each of us. You just need to have the confidence and the belief in yourself to go out there and start sharing those stories. And then you will inspire other people to grow their businesses the right way.
So this is the first time that UNHCR participates in this event. It was actually very important for us to be a part of this system that would actually allow us to know more about what is actually happening.
A university in the city of civilizations, Istanbul, from proud past to bright
shiny and enticing from the outside, yet is risky and unpredictable from the inside. Did you know that 3 out of every 5 startups fail due to poor products delivered to the market? Nevertheless, there is no better time to think about your own startup. Shifting your services or your line of business to achieve the utmost ambition is more attainable now than ever before. You are on the verge of a new and exciting venture, and KnowledgeNet is here to help you. KnowledgeNet is interested to talk about your idea and get it into reality through our leading solution, iMore for Startups. iMore is a flexible and easy to understand cloud development space, and our developers can manipulate it to create a secure and scalable applications for you. With iMore, our developers can integrate your functions and develop your web and mobile app in a fraction of the cost that it normally takes. No more hiccups. iMore is your scalable, secure, and malleable platform that will rapidly get your startup into the rollout phase. Besides helping you to roll out a seamless product to the entrepreneurial area, iMore gives you the power to deploy and integrate with wide range of application servers. WebLogic, WebSphere, and Wildfly, JBoss, you name it. Finally, you can tailor stunning and interactive dashboards with just a few clicks. With iMore and the professional team that is leading KnowledgeNet, you have yourself a lifetime partner to ensure your success. Now it's your turn to make the right move, as your tech startup is now halfway launched. To find more about iMore, visit
finance industry, Malaysia has all the makings to lead the Islamic fintech agenda. Its continued pursuit of innovation further strengthened Malaysia's position in Islamic fintech specifically, and Islamic finance as a whole. The Islamic Fintech Dialogue Series, an impartial platform that addresses Malaysian Islamic digital economy issues, is one such initiative. This dialogue series primarily serves to create continuous engagement between all Islamic fintech industry stakeholders. The inaugural dialogue, held on November 2019, saw AMDEC and other ecosystem players develop recommendations that were to be implemented into various initiatives. As for 2020's dialogue, it is also drafting an equally as comprehensive action plan with the focus around the theme, driving digital financial inclusion through Islamic fintech.